Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. It's February.
It is.
So we're going to be talking about Sweet and Toe Tingling Romances for our Facebook Live book recommendations this month. Heads up, we're both sick.
We're both coming down from it.
Yeah, so if you hear us coughing, I have a cough drop too. I apologize, but
it's just what happens when...
We didn't want to miss it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're really excited about the books that we have this week. Or this month.
And like always, we can't talk about all the romance books. So if there's anything that you think everyone else should know about, just leave it in the comments below. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post below too. And they're not all sweet and toe tingling.
Yeah, some of them are like fantasy, some of them are sci-fi, some of them are
suspense,
creepy and paranormal. Yeah, so it's always, but it always has a really good romance. It's kind of what we were going for, was like one of those nice romances, just to make you really get invested in the characters.
Just to give you a heads up.
Yeah.
But stay tuned to see what we're going to talk about. And Erin's going to start us off.
I'm starting us off. Since I'm the teen librarian, I do mostly teen, but sometimes I'll cover children's books. So there aren't many children's books for that are like toe tingling. So we kind of did a little bit more heavy on the YA this year. Yeah, you got crushes, but not as much for like the romance part.
And when you're jumping on, leave us a heart or a thumbs up. Let us know you're there. And thanks for
always
joining.
tell us if you have a recommendation, please. So I'm starting off with a YA title. This is a title that came out this year. It got like a ton of awards, and there's been a lot of interest in it. It is called We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Meha. This came out February 26, 2019. So this book is set in a sort of fantasy Mexico-ish style world. It is about a girl named Daniela Dani Varga, who is about to graduate from 5 years of training at this very, very elite finishing school called the Medio Finishing School for Girls. And she's about to join the powerful Garcia family to become their chimera. So either her job is going to be taking care of the man's house or taking care of the man's children. She is about to be engaged as well, because that is part of her finishing school job. The thing is, the only people who can become part of the finishing school are very, very high elite people, and she is not. Her entire backstory is a fraud, and she has to keep that hidden as she's about to go into this world, into a world that she doesn't really want to be a part of, especially because as she's about to graduate, she is approached by a spy organization asking her to work for them, as well as finding out that the romance that she thinks is set out for her may not be the romance she wants, and instead might be something more forbidden. So it's got a lot of very interesting cultural parallels to what's happening now, but the romance is really good and very, very just really nice. It's a nice feeling romance. So the best way that people have described it is true love via hate cute, which I think is an adorable way to kind of describe that trope. Yeah. So that is We Set the Dark on Fire. I keep wanting to say that we set the fire, or is it set dark to the fire or something? I don't know what I'm doing. Well, like I said, we're both not feeling great today, so we're doing our best. But so We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Meha.
Okay, and I'm going to start off with a series that's older. The first book came out in 2006, but it's still going strong. The first book in the series is called Slave to Sensation. It's the first book in the Psy Changeling series by Nalini Singh. And now we're up to book 18. So this book looks a little careworn. This is the brand new book from this summer. Very fancy. So Kirkus says that this is a must-read series, so the whole thing. The first one, The Slave to Sensation, this is a really interesting premise. So in the world that this is in, there are two classes. There's the Psy, which is PSY, and the Changelings. So the Psy are the ruling class, and they punish any sign of desire or emotion. And the main character, Sasha, must hide her feelings that would mark her as flawed if other people knew about them. And then there's Lucas, who's a changeling. He's half human, half animal, and he's hungry for the sensations that the Psy disdain. The two races now are on the verge of war because there's been a lot of murders of changeling women, and Lucas wants to know who murdered his packmate. He feels like Sasha is his ticket into the Psy world. But as he gets closer to the ice-cold Sasha, he realizes that she is capable of passion and she's fascinated. Ooh. So that is Slaved Sensation. It has really great character development, strong characters. So this is book 1. This is book 18. You should give it a try.
So I'm moving over into a very odd semi-sci-fi-ish style novel that's very hard to explain but really beautiful. It is called Midnight at the Electric by Jodi Lynn Anderson. Anderson's been writing a lot of other books. She's got a lot of titles under her belt, but this is one of her more recent ones. It did come in 2017, but it's had a lot of people who are really interested in just how weirdly it messes with sci-fi and time, not even time travel, but looking at the past, looking at the future, that sort of thing. So this book is set out starting in the year 2065 about a young girl named Adri Ortiz. She is 16, and she has been chosen to be one of the hardworking people who are going to colonize Mars. She has nothing to live for and no family to care about, so she's like, yeah, sure, absolutely, I'll go. And then she finds out that she does have a long-lost cousin who is like 107 years old, living, I think, in, where is it, Montana, I think, potentially? And she goes to stay with her for a little while before she goes to Mars. And when she's there, she finds a Galapagos tortoise living on the farm, and also finds a diary that was left by a woman who is close to her family. This woman was named Catherine, and she was living on the farm in 1934, and she is somehow tied to the cousin, as well as tied to a woman farther in the past in 1919 who just lost her brother in World War I. And it's all the story about how this Galapagos tortoise ties all these women together throughout the history, and about this mystery that Audrey is trying to figure out. So the romance parts come in looking in the past romances of the women as they have grown up and loved and lost and learned from it. It's a lot of stuff to pack into a relatively thin book, but it's really beautiful. Just an interesting take on that kind of look back on history style of book. So this is Midnight at the Electric by Jodi Lynn Anderson.
If you're just jumping on, don't forget to give us a like or a hello or a thumbs up. We like to know who's joining. So my next title I'm talking about is an LGBTQ romance. It's called The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. This just came out last year, and when it came out, it was all over the magazines. Everyone was really excited about it. Kirkus gave it a starred review. They said that it's utterly charming and subtly subversive. So it's an historical romance, and it's the first in the Feminine Pursuit series. One of the main characters, Lucy, finds a letter asking for someone to translate a French astronomy text. And when she shows up at the Countess's London home, who put out the letter, Lucy realized she'd hoped for a challenge, but she really hadn't hoped for a woman who took her breath away. And Catherine, who's the Countess, she is looking forward to a quiet widowhood once her late husband's scientific legacy is taken care of. She sort of just wanted to push it off. But when she finds this woman at her door saying that she can translate, she becomes intrigued. As Catherine finds herself longing for Lucy, she is questioning everything she thought she knew about herself. And Lucy spends her days interpreting the French astronomy text and spends her nights falling in love with Catherine. But then there's sabotage, and old wounds threaten to sever the ties that bind them. It's supposed to be fantastic. The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics. It's the first in the Feminine Pursuit series. Give it a shot. All these books are in my catalog, by the way, so you should order them. So I'm going to pull out one of actually my favorite LGBT titles. This is a very fun book, very weird. Really fun. And it's such a good experience. It's so much fun. It does have a sequel. I think it's The Pirate's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, and it matches the title of this book, which is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which is such a good title. It really is. So this is a very anachronistic book. It has it's set in the 18th century.
it's just a lot of people running around in like waistcoats and stuff like that, but doing a lot of very modern things. So this story is about 18-year-old Viscount Henry Montague, who is known for his dashing good looks, his penchant for booze, and his penchant for boys. His abusive father is grooming him to take over the estate, and he has essentially sided with his best friend, a boy named Percy, who is the orphan son of a British colonist and a woman from Barbados, that he wants to go on this massive grand tour where he just gets to experience all of life's pleasures before he has to take over the family's estate. But when the father finds out about this, he kind of adds a little bit of insult to this, saying that his sister has been delivered to a school in Marseille, and he has to remain on the sober, straight, and narrow, or else risking loss of title and fortune, which he doesn't want to do. But then he gets to Versailles, and all that falls apart, and he ends up basically becoming a thief, having to go on the run. A lot of crazy things happen. It is just, so fun. It's a really great story. Basically, a lot of people have been saying that it's like a mix of Austen, Oscar Wilde, and Indiana Jones. And they also call it a bonbon, which is, I think, is just a great way to describe just such a weird book. But I love it. It's really fun. The sequel is really good too. So this is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee.
Sounds like a good one.
It's so fun. It's such a fun just mess. It's so good.
So I'm about to talk about The Expected Scottish Romance.
Subjectified Scotsman, not Thursday like it usually is, but a Subjectified Scotsman Wednesday.
Yeah. Everyone knows these covers. You see them all in the bookstore, in the romance section, and in the library. This one is Surrender to the Highlander by Lindsay Sands. And it's part of a series, the Highland Bride series. I don't get the impression you have to read them in order, so if you want to start off with this one. The summary for this one is one of the main characters, Edith. She owes her life to Niles and his brothers because she wakes up after a serious illness in a castle that's overrun by rugged Highlanders. And she then learns that she's been slowly poisoned, and that's why she was sick. Niles insists on staying by her side, and she soon realizes her attraction to the fierce warrior. Niles has never met a more courageous or enticing woman than Lady Edith, and he'd gladly marry her himself, but while sweeping her off her feet is easy, it's not so easy to defeat her family's enemies or to convince her to love him. It got a great review from Kirkus, an intriguing mystery, interesting characters, and unexpected twists that will keep readers guessing. Sexy, delightful, a must-read for historical romance fans. So if you like the Scottish romances, you should definitely give Lindsay Sands a shot. She has a ton of them, and this one got great reviews. Surrender to the Highlander.
So I finally have a middle school-ish age book. This is about all I have for children's, for like toe tingling. It's just a cute book about crushes and stuff like that, which I think is perfect, especially if you like have a middle schooler who is dealing with a crush or things like that.
We all remember those days.
Yeah, it's like it's a really good book to kind of help them sort of slide into that weird transitional age. So this book is called Never Evers. Because it's a really good book, it's also checked out a lot, so I couldn't get a copy of it, but it is in our catalog. It's just checked out right now. So this is Never Evers by Lucy Iveson and Tom Ellen. This is about two English preteens, I think they're 13, so teenagers, who go on a school trip to the French Alps for like a ski trip, which, wow, they're lucky. I never got to do that when I was in middle school, but okay. It's just because they're like British, I think.
Maybe.
So they go on this trip to the French Alps. There's another group of kids from another school, and the two main characters are the girl Mouse and the boy Jack. So as they're there, of course, weird things start to happen. There's a thing that involves a French pop star showing up at some point, trying to woo one of the characters, and misunderstandings, and like all those sorts of tropes. But it's really just, it's very cute and kind of like about them sort of learning to grow together. Like one of them is learning to be willing to do ballet again, the other one's learning to, be willing to sing again in their band. It's kind of them helping each other out while also dealing with these weird misunderstandings as they also try to figure out how to be like how to have a crush, how to deal with that. So it's very cute, it's very adorable, and I think it sounds like a fun read.
Yeah.
So you should definitely try Never Evers by Tom Ellen and Lucy Iveson.
Okay. I've got one of the classic love-hate relationship books coming up. So it's called Hate to Want You by Alicia Rai, and it's book 1 in the Forbidden Heart series. This one came out in 2017, and Alicia Rai uses a lot of characters from different cultural backgrounds, which is nice. So the summary for this one is that every year, one of the main characters and Nicholas agree that they will share one night of perfect pleasure, but then one night Livy doesn't show up. And Nicholas, meanwhile, has an empire to run. They both are part of big business families. And so while he's running his business, Livy's sudden appearance is annoying. She's the one woman he shouldn't want. And when she comes back to her hometown, it's not for Nicholas, but fate seems determined to remind them of each other and their past. But not even love can overcome the scandal that has divided their family.
Oh, no, we're
there
back.
we are. Good.
Technical difficulties.
Sorry about that.
Of course.
The iPad froze.
Yep.
So I'm talking about Hate to Want You. I got a great review from Kirkus, starred review, calling it sexy, emotional. Thank you for the thumbs up.
Thanks.
Sexy is emotional, intense, a romance wrapped in a fascinating family saga. It's a complete package, heartbreaking, and supremely satisfying. So, highly recommended. Give it a shot.
My next one is a YA title, and I haven't read this yet, and I really want to read this. It seems really cute. The whole premise of it is weird. So this book is called Field Notes on Love by Jennifer E. Smith. It's about a boy named Hugo, who is one of the Surrey Six. He is one of the 6 septuplets that were born in Surrey, England, and he has been looking forward to doing this big long train trip across America with his girlfriend Margaret Campbell. He'll take him away from like the public scrutiny and all the just the issues of having so many siblings. The other problem is Margaret breaks up with him right before he gets on the trip, and her name is on the ticket. She cannot refund the ticket. He can't do anything, and he can only have someone to go on the trip with him who's named Margaret Campbell. So he sets out a call online for a person named Margaret Campbell to come join him on this trip. And lo and behold, there is a girl named Margaret, she goes by May Campbell, living in New York, who sees this and thinks, this sounds like a great experience, let's do it. And so she gets on a train with a stranger, and essentially after kind of getting through the weird awkwardness of first meeting, they start to explore the train together, meeting the other people traveling with them to find out what their stories are. And so this very sweet book, they say it never really gets like super overly sentimental, but it's more about them meeting these people, learning their love stories, and then them falling in love at the same time. So it's very cute. Apparently it's got like a lot of really cute like side characters and stuff like that. But it looks really fun. I'm really excited to try it out. So this is Field Notes on Love by Jennifer E. Smith.
Okay, my next one is a romance suspense, which is a really big category in romance. Maybe you think romance isn't for you, but you like thrillers, you like mysteries. That's what a romance suspense is. This one is Desperate Girls by Laura Griffin. It's from 2018, and it's book 1 in the Wolf Security series. So in this book, defense attorney Bryn hears that her former colleague has been murdered, and the main suspect is a man that she helped to put in jail who's now out of jail and looking for revenge. Bryn's boss hires a private security guard to protect Bryn, and at first Bryn's super mad because she thinks she can protect herself, but the more she gets to know her guard Eric, she gets more okay with the security guard. Yeah. Eric is former military and former Secret Service, and he does everything by the book, but the more time he spends with Bryn, the harder it is to follow the rules. So a little bit of opposites attract, I think. And Publishers Weekly gave this a starred and boxed review, which is super special. They said that it's intensely suspenseful, Griffin pulls out all the stops, and a phenomenal twist ending that will leave readers stunned. So You love twist endings. Give this a shot.
So my next two books kind of go hand in hand. They're kind of like the same style, but two different types. And I like both the way they took it. So the first book that I have is I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu, and the song's going to now be stuck in my head for like the next 10 days. So I Believe in a Thing Called Love, which I feel like I'm saying with like the pattern of the song as I do it, is about a Korean American student named Desi Lee, who's incredibly self-aware. She's a senior high school student, and she basically feels if there's a plan, all is well. Mm-hmm. She gets a little bit of a crush on Luca Dracos, which that's a name, he's a transfer student, and he shows up and she immediately thinks he's wonderful, he's perfect, she wants him. So she starts making like all these plans to kind of get to know him. So as soon as she meets him, she makes sure he knows that she is the student body president, that she's pretty much slated to be valedictorian, and so she's very confident in everything, but when it comes to guys. So she then is too afraid to lose this chance with this really cute guy that she turns to the Korean dramas that her father watches, and she starts looking at how they go about it, which is just absolutely amazing. And she starts basically making a plan that is her 24 K-drama to love plan. One of which is my favorite, which is Be Caught in an obviously lopsided love triangle. Of course. And it's so cute. It's so adorable. And like if you know anything about K-dramas, or if you like just kind of like that like over-the-top feeling, you should absolutely read this. So that is I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu.
All right, so next I'm going to talk about an author I hope you know of. Her name is Alyssa Cole. She's a super inclusive romance writer, which is a little rare, becoming less rare. A lot of her characters are from different cultures. Thank you for the thumbs up. A lot of her characters are from different cultures, different backgrounds, also LGBTQ characters. This one happens to have an African American epidemiology student and a suave African prince. So it's called A Princess in Theory. It's book 1 in the Reluctant Royal series. So it's the summary. Oh, also I should mention it was one of the 100 notable books of 2018 according to the New York Times. Like, when does a romance book get picked for that?
True, very true.
So it's pretty important. So between grad school and multiple jobs, Nalidi does not have time for fairy tales. And she doesn't have time for all these emails that she's been getting claiming that she's betrothed to an African prince. She's a former foster kid, and she learned the only thing she can depend on is herself and the scientific method. Prince Thabiso, on the other hand, is the sole heir to the throne of Thesolo, and he has the hopes and dreams of his family and his people on his shoulders, but at the top of their list is his marriage. So he goes to track down his missing betrothed, who, of course, is Nalidi. And when they meet, she thinks that he's a pauper, and he can't resist a chance to experience life without the burden of his crown. Kirkus gave it a starred review. They said it's delightful and a sexy take on love between a suave African prince and a nerdy student.
So I love that. The thing I love about romances is that you can have these weird jobs. Like, where else in the world would a nerdy epidemiologist get to marry a prince?
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal.
It's a really good deal. Just once again, I love romance world just for that reason.
Yeah. So you should check this out, or anything by Lisa Cole. She is amazing.
So mine, like I said, is very similar to the last one I recommended. This next one is called My So-Called Bollywood Life by Nisha Sharma. This one is about Vanita Winnie Mehta, who is essentially, when we first meet her, she's digging a grave for her ex-boyfriend's movie collection. She believed that this boy, Raj, was destined to be with her. Their match was fated in the stars. Like, they even checked their natal star charts, and it matched. It was destiny. And so she was really devastated to find out through social media that he was hooking up with another girl from their class. And then, at the same time, she's also stripped of her role as the school's film festival chair because of a problem with the administration. Wow. And then, on top of that, she also finds out that Raj has secured the of Bend It Like Beckham, who is her absolute just idol. And and they're the guests of honor, and she just cannot let this all stand. So she is forced to reconnect with a classmate and fellow film geek, Dev Khanna, and she falls for him super hard as soon as she gets to know him. But she's kind of stuck in this place where she fully believes that Roz is her destiny, but if she gives up her destiny to be with Dev, could she end up, alone and unloved, because their love is not written in the stars. It's really great. If so, it kind of even comes down to the very end to have her own scripted Bollywood ending, which has got this really great theme to it.
Awesome.
So it's a really cute, very humorous book. This is the first book by this author, and I'm really excited to see more from her. So this is My So-Called Bollywood Life by Nisha Sharma.
Okay, so we like wrapping up with some of our personal favorites.
Yep.
So this series that this book starts is what made me fall in love with the romance genre. It is a Regency romance. I think my phone just heard me with Siri. Sorry for the beep. This is the First Rule of Scoundrels series, a rule by any other name. And sort of like we were talking with the epidemiology student, all of the women characters in this series are super strong, super smart, just unexpected characters. So in this series here, the story is that a decade before the start of this book, the Marquess of Bourne was cast from society. He's now a partner in London's most exclusive gaming hall, and he will do whatever it takes to regain his inheritance, which is basically his land, including marrying the proper Lady Penelope. So Lady Penelope has had a pretty hard time. She has a broken engagement in her past, years of disappointing courtships, and at this point she does not have any interest in a comfortable marriage. But all this time with failed relationships, she thinks there must be something more for me. So that's what she really wants, is just something more. And when Bourne sort of tricks her into marrying him, she has all this access all of a sudden to the gaming hall, or so she thinks. Bourne says that he's vowing to keep her untouched by the wickedness of the gaming hall, which is a challenge since she's very strong-willed. The Library Journal gave it a starred review, says it's brilliantly crafted and deliciously seductive. But one thing I really love about this book is at the beginning of the chapters, thank you for the thumbs ups, folks.
There we go.
The beginning of the chapters start with little snippets of letters between the two, and they're very young. They're sort of school child friends. He goes away, she stays at home, and they write letters back and forth. But then when he's disgraced, she keeps writing him, and he never writes back, and you can just hear the loss in the little letter parts, and they have these feelings for each other that they don't really understand until they meet in the woods one dark night and he tricks her into marrying him. Sounds improbable, but it totally works.
So mine is a YA title. This is a really old title, is in YA standards. It came out in 2012. A lot of people who read a lot of YA have probably read this book, but this is honestly one of the few books that I've ever read where the romance has stayed with me for years. I can actually remember reading this book in a night and finishing it, sobbing it, and I got it from the library and I literally went and bought it the next day for my personal collection. That's how much I loved this book. So it is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. This book is set in 1980s-ish Texas, about a young boy named Ari, Aristotle, he goes by Ari, who's 15, whose brother is in jail for a crime we don't know anything about. His father just came back from Vietnam, and his mother is just trying to hold everything together. He's also dealing with being Mexican-American and trying to figure out what his identity is. And one day he's at the local pool, and he meets a boy named Dante, who is also Mexican-American, but he's on the completely different side of the cultural divide from him, where he's a little bit more Americanized. His family is made up of professors, but they become incredibly fast friends. They start developing this really close relationship, and then Dante leaves and goes to Chicago for a few years. But they send letters back and forth trying to keep in touch, and so you see Aristotle's life kind of starting to fall apart as he tries to figure out who he is. While Dante starts coming out and discovering that he's gay and that's what he wants to be, and learning to be who he is. And then he eventually comes back to Texas, and it's kind of about them reconciling, getting to know each other again, and getting to know each other with the knowledge of what Aristotle's brother did, their own cultural history, as well as the fact that they live in Texas in 1980. It is an absolutely beautiful book. It is almost lyrically written. It has some of the most beautiful language I have ever read in a YA novel. If you listen to audiobooks, you should absolutely listen to the audiobook version of it. It is read by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who makes it sound like poetry. And the book is a prose novel, but it is written like poetry. And I want to read a small little sentence from it that just kind of shows how pretty the language is. Where they're kind of talking about the issues of them becoming men, and it's that's a very Dante question, I said. That's a very Ari answer, he said. And for a few minutes, I wish that Dante and I lived in a universe of boys instead of a universe of almost men. Like I said, one of the prettiest books I've ever read. It has won a lot of awards. If you also need a reason to read it, you should read it because it is an award winner of almost every award it could possibly have won in that span of years.
Yeah.
So this is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Sayis. He's written a lot of books. I really love him. But yeah.
I've heard the people who don't even like romance like that book.
It's a really gorgeous book. It's one of the prettiest romances. Like I said, I read it at night and then I sobbed for a couple of hours and then I went and bought it for myself. It's so beautiful. So anyway, that's our suggestions.
Yeah, that wraps up our February romance book suggestions. Next month, we're going to do this again on Wednesday, March 11th at 7:30. And we're going to be doing super science fiction.
Sci-fi.
Aliens, spaceships. Maybe we'll talk a little about Star Trek versus Star Wars. See what happens.
I don't want to start a war.
Okay, yeah, probably not. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.
See you next time.